farmer join the recording first from the sound of his typing?
I don't know what you're talking about. Welcome in, everybody.
Ooh, do you wanna start it off? Go ahead, Farm.
No, I'm good. You said I entered in first, so.
Well, I was gonna cut that, but I guess we'll leave it in.
Well, we should do it. I guess I should do it right then.
All right, go ahead.
Welcome. Let's try this again. Welcome in, everybody. It is our 10th episode here for AnavCast. I've got my good friend Johnny.
Hello.
And my other good friend DJD here, and we're ready to get rolling.
Who are you?
Everybody knows who I am.
Yeah, that's true. You're the host. And who's back there? Who's back there in the booth? We always give them a shout out.
Oh man, see, this is why you're supposed to do this.
And we got Craig back there in the booth. What's up, Craig? Thank you for coming in today. Yeah, we're going good start. So one of the things we all said before we started was it's episode 10, and I would actually like your opinion on this because I made a comment that are we going to do seasons, and then Farm came in and he was like, that's like a whole season 1. Are you guys a fan of like when podcasts specifically do that, like season 1, season 2 kind of a deal, or are you just like a one big thing kind of podcast listener? Does that make sense?
I think now I like the grouping. I like thinking of it as like, okay, so like instead of there being like 150 billion episodes in one season,
150 billion.
150 billion.
Half as many people as play WoW.
Yeah. Well, when you say it like that, it seems much more attainable.
But I think over time, I like the grouping of things into smaller groups as opposed to just one collection. Like what kind of bugs me is like when you buy a TV show and you buy the whole collection and it puts it all in one season and it's every episode. And then you can't actually, like, you have to scroll through all the episodes to get to the various seasons as opposed to just being able to choose like, okay, let's go ahead and watch season 5 or whatever. Yeah. But I will also say this, with podcasts, it's interesting because normally there's not a substantive change between seasons. Every now and then there is. But in general, it's usually just an excuse to either take a break or to just arbitrarily group it. And I don't know that I like that. I like the concept of smaller groups, but like I don't know that podcasts really utilize that season structure well.
I think it would be nice to have like a separation for like on maybe a year, like a season in a year or something like that. Since we're doing it in every week, it could be easily 52 in a season. I don't know how you guys feel about that, but I mean it is nice, like David was saying, to kind of have it grouped up in some sort of format to where you can actually find it when you want to go back and like, well, where was that episode that they were talking about, Star Wars or talking about Lord of the Rings or any of those manner of things. And you can't, if you have like a whole slew of them, it's really hard to like pinpoint it. Where was it?
And it can be intimidating, right? You like look at something and it's like, oh man, there's how many episodes of this? Like, should I start listening now? Right? Or should I go back and start at the beginning? Am I ever going to catch up? That's how I usually feel about it. But also I kind of agree with D, since there's not a change. Like, look at it. I have all of Lost. It is 120 episodes. How am I supposed to start this?
one step at a time.
Right? How am I supposed to start this? But also there's not going to be a change. There is a podcast I listen to that's like an educational podcast. And they kind of do seasons, but it's topic based, right? So they have like 20 episodes where they're discussing this very specific topic. And then, now it's a new, and they usually have like, 1 to 4 seasons, so to speak, a year where they're discussing a new topic. But for us, we don't, what is this first season? Would be the Sea of Thieves season? I don't know. Like, it's a little hard to say.
Sea of Thieves season 10.
Well, and I think the way that we do it, there isn't a particular like theme per se, except for like that we're covering media in some general format, like whether it being, TV shows, movies, or games, or news in that general theme. But like outside of that, we kind of go, kind of fill it out and go where we need to go.
This is true.
We don't really like have like, okay, this we're talking all about this one thing. We haven't done that, and I don't know if we will. We might. I don't know. But again, there wouldn't be really any reason to have like a title, over the whole season, in my opinion, because like how many things have we covered? Like that would be a long title. That's all I can say.
Well, let me ask this. So for books, do you prefer when chapters have titles or when they just say chapter 1, chapter 2?
I like both.
Oh man, why did you have to come in with that analogy?
Well, we have episode numbers and titles for each episode. So we cover both.
So, we're covering that basis, but there's not like it's not like season 1, and I don't know.
Wait, stop. If we start a new season, can episode 9 of every season be The Rise of Skywalker?
I'm fine with
that. Why?
Never mind. I fully support it. Let's start it now. Let's next week is episode. We should just have the same titles for every episode in every season.
Now, see, I think seasons can be a great opportunity to like take a break, see how things are going, rework stuff if they need to be reworked, and kind of like look at the analytics if you're really concerned with that. Since we aren't really, like, we discuss it casually, but I mean, like, it's not something that like we're chasing, I mean, like, I don't necessarily see a huge point to that.
I would be willing to go away with you for the summer upstate if you wanted to take a break.
Take a break.
So wait, real quick. I wanted to say, we kind of talked about 10 episodes, but like, what do you guys think about the whole change from like, we've kind of touched about this a little bit, but like used to is like, it was always like 20, 21 episodes to make a season. And a lot of things are going away from that sort of thing. It's like, it's still that kind of, to me, it still feels like that would make more sense to be a season. I don't know.
Like longer seasons or whatever. Little. I mean,
10 seems too small.
I feel like the struggle is with 10 episodes is like writing it well enough that like you don't have like filler, but you also keep everything like tight and like dense,
right, but since what we're
and
doing,
not like leave
really
like
written.
too many questions. But yeah, I mean, like in terms of freeform, I don't necessarily think it really matters that much. I don't know.
I think we should do a season a year if that's what we end up doing.
I think that makes sense.
Well, what makes sense to me is like a season for every season, right? Because that's where the term came from, right?
A season for every season?
A season every 3 months. Because like spring, winter, summer, fall. Not in that order, but...
So we're about to get into the second season then, is what you're saying.
I mean, sure, but we've also only have 2.5 months as opposed to 3.
This week is the beginning of spring. I want to throw that out there.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. So we started for second week of January, somewhere around there? Second, third week, somewhere around there?
I have no idea when we started.
Time. This is episode 10, so it was 10 weeks ago.
Time is a river.
Wow.
The door is ajar.
The door
is a jar. I love
Whenever
that so much.
anyone starts saying stuff like that, I always think of that. Like, the door is a jar.
It's funny because they're like trying to say something poetic and almost has that wisdom. It just sounds sounds so deep. Oh, time is a river.
One thing I want to touch on, circling back here to things we have talked about in the past. As a lot of you guys...
Do we have anything correct?
Yeah, actually. Well, turns out that the Battlefront 2 remaster, which I think remaster is a very kind way of describing it, is not crossplay.
What?
Which I thought was the whole point.
That's what I thought was the whole point too. Did you not hear this, Farmer?
No,
It's not
you know,
crossplay.
I've heard that there's some big backlash, but I had no idea it wasn't crossplay.
Yeah,
What
I
in the
almost bought it
world?
on Xbox.
So it's platform to platform, like old day style. Man, they really are, trying to remaster it from the old days perspective.
Right? It really is a PS2 game.
It's like with all the features that you would expect.
Oh my god! Like, I was so I'm mad. What's even the point? What's even the point now? So if I want to play with you guys, I have to play it on Steam. Apparently,
there was and granted, this is probably a rumor, but I heard there was only 3 servers or something like that.
Yeah,
is that right?
That was actually confirmed. They launched with 3 servers. They added more eventually, but they launched with only 3 servers.
My goodness.
And we're talking servers like games, basically. Not servers this server's holding 200 games or whatever. We're talking about servers this server was holding 64 people.
I know. That's crazy.
I like it because it's I would imagine the conversation was something like this. They're like, how many servers do you think we need for launch? I don't know, 2? And then the guy's like, let's make it 3.
It's you know what? It's almost in that conversation is we don't expect this game to do well. We only need 2 servers. So, let's make it 3. But we know this is going to be a bust. So no worries.
Yeah. So I don't want to say I called it, but I'm just saying. Turns out that the PS2 game is a lot more like a PS2 game than we thought it was going to be.
And I guess nobody really wants to play a PS2 game.
They're missing some of the cutscenes that were in the originals.
What?
I don't know how.
How do you miss all this stuff?
Yeah.
Writing's on the wall. There's certain check boxes that easily you have to hit when you're making a remaster. I just don't understand. I'm sorry. I don't mean to come after the developer, but
also freaking, you have one job, developer. Are you serious? Come on, dude.
This is also the developer that ported what was it, KOTOR 2, I think, or something like that, and that ended up not being great either.
KOTOR 2 was supposed to come out on multiple platforms, and I think did it ever actually come up on all platforms?
I'm not sure.
I have no idea.
I thought it was just came out on PlayStation and never really ended up doing anything. I don't know. I
don't know if this is popular or not, but I preferred KOTOR 1 to KOTOR 2 personally.
Yes, 100%. Yeah.
I didn't like how in KOTOR 2 everyone could become a Jedi. I kind of liked in KOTOR 1 that it's these people are Jedi, these people are not. And the people who aren't Jedi have skills that make them still desirable to be in your party, right? You don't need to have a party of all Jedi, kind of a deal.
Yeah, they updated Knights of the Old Republic Sith Lords and ported it to Mac OS and Linux. And I recall there being some issues with that update. I don't remember exactly what those issues were, though. That was in 2015. They were also the studio that was in charge of the KOTOR remake, which I was actually looking forward to.
Yeah, the remaster. I thought KOTOR 1, right?
Or KOTOR 1, a complete remake from the ground up or whatever. Yeah. And supposedly they were going to change the gameplay. They were going to do
I would support this. I would support this style of remaster.
But also, that's in August 2022, Embracer announced Asper is no longer working on the game and development had been moved to another studio. And then Asper was also a part of Saber Interactive, which just escaped Embracer Group. I don't know whether they still are or not. But yeah, I think it is still... Nope, it did not, actually. It's still part of Embracer. So Saber Interactive now, I don't know what they're doing with KOTOR at all.
I'm reading something right now that says that it's still in the works. This was updated 3 days ago.
Well... So Saber Interactive, their COO, their Chief Operating Officer, came out with a short little message saying, here's the games we're working on, even though we've separated from Embracer Group. And did not mention KOTOR. And I feel like you would if you had the rights to that. So maybe it's still an Embracer Group, but it kind of sucks that it was given to Asper, then taken away, but still under Saber. And then Saber leaves. I don't know. I don't think that game's coming out.
It says
like,
I
I mean,
again,
like,
yeah, it seems like it's kind of up in the air. But this thing I'm reading right now says it's Saber Interactive. But again, who knows? Who really knows at this point?
Well, Saber's not a part of Embracer though, so yeah. I mean, like, yeah, I would imagine that Embracer would keep the rights to that. I don't know. It depends on the separation, but yeah, if Asper's still a part of Embracer, then I would imagine KOTOR would still be as well.
Asper apparently specialized in porting games from Windows to Mac, and I see here they ported Galactic Battlegrounds.
Oh, really?
Day,
I did not know that. Yeah. I thought it was a really weird choice to like handle a full remake.
That being said, has anyone here played Age of Empires 4?
I've a little bit.
I think I'm right there. I've just a little bit, not too much.
It just came out on Xbox, actually.
Yes, I downloaded it and played it a little bit on Xbox, but I just didn't get it. You know, I think I'm just not in the mental headspace that I wanted to learn everything, and especially like Xbox controls of how to get everywhere and such. But it's interesting because Age of Empires 2 was such an important game to me growing up. You know, I used to play like LAN parties with friends and just play Age of Empires. And now I find myself not really liking it. Like I downloaded Age of Empires 2 when it came out on Xbox, like the remastered edition. And I just played one game and uninstalled it because I was like, yeah, like it's okay. You know, it's really weird. 4 seems really cool. But that's, you know, I haven't gotten to do too much with it, and I don't know that I will.
Well, and my problem, too, with playing any other strategy game is, like, it kind of makes me just want to go back to Stellaris, even though my last Stellaris game went really badly.
Well, maybe it's that whole thing of, like, Age of Empires was, you know, really good, like, starter. Like, so many of those games, like, early on was our first... you know, let's say first FPS, first RTS, and you know, it introduced you to that franchise. But we've gotten into a place where we've, you know, especially you guys, you played other RTSs that have a more complex system to them, and you know, it's way beyond what the more simplistic Age of Empires has to offer. Which nothing wrong with Age of Empires, but it doesn't have the intricacies of like Stellaris, you know. It doesn't have like, you know, on the, you know, as far as like the civilization, the whole politics side of things, you know, you don't go that deep. And so you probably just gotten to that place, you know, where it's like, oh, this game is good as a beginner, but now that I've, you know, graduated gaming, you know, college,
so to speak.
You got to that place where I need you know, something to, you know, relate a little bit more to my style these days, more to, you know, what I kind of like to keep in front of me, so to speak.
Well, it's interesting too, because I like to play Stellaris with David, but I found I really like turn-based strategy games like Civ, Civilization more. I play quite a bit of Civ 6.
That's so interesting because I don't know, maybe I just haven't got the right one, but like waiting turns, you know, it's not real to me, you know. I don't know because it's not real-time strategy. I don't know.
No, exactly. Well, I think that's what I like about it is that I'm not going to be penalized for not reacting quickly.
Well, I guess there is that.
I can just kind of make my moves and be watching stuff, but like quick reaction isn't such a big deal as much as, I don't know, prediction and being like, oh, this doesn't look good.
Sure. I think it's weird because like I would say I side more with Farmer on that, where I prefer like real time, but also like it sucks to make a mistake and then have to live with that mistake and not have like the time to like be able to like really think about certain things. And sure, you can like pause like some of them, you know, and all that, but
a mistake in real time is, it affects a lot more than if you just flub one turn.
Right. Civ, well, and then you lose the inertia too, right? And everyone can outpace you or whatever. And yeah,
as soon as you make one mess up, one wrong strategy, it could be your downfall in a real time strategy for sure. And I guess I could see the difference where the turn based, you like, okay, I made a bad turn, but I could still bring it back around easily, you know?
Yeah. Oh, Farm, I came up with an idea. I talked with David about this, and I've talked with Travis and Daniel. I think I've solved my not having a PC problem.
Oh, really? What are you gonna do?
I want to buy a Steam Deck.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, it's a PC.
That's a great solution. Yeah,
that's actually why haven't we thought of this before? We could.
I know. For real,
I'll go fund Johnny, and get him a Steam Deck because that's essential of life.
Yeah, I'm excited. So I want to buy one. Problem being is that the Japan online retailer that like works with Valve, they're out. So in a couple of weeks, and supposedly they'll get restocks mid-April, but I'm also going to be going to Tokyo in a couple of weeks with my son on his spring break for like the day. And there's a few stores there that...
Can you not get it shipped to you?
Well, no, it's just that you can't get your hands on one. You can't get one shipped from America. No, you have to buy it from one of the Japan retailers, and they are out of stock. But I'm going to go to a brick and mortar store when I'm in Tokyo and see if they have any in stock there.
Nice.
And that'll be super cool. I'm excited.
That's pretty exciting. You'll be able to play a whole slew of games. Like, does the Steam Deck support all the games on Steam? Pretty much.
It supports a lot of them. I don't know about all, but it supports a lot of them, especially a lot of the bigger ones.
That's pretty cool.
It supports Helldivers too. I did look that one up.
The real reason.
The real reason.
I'm super excited. I did not think I'd get to play that game with Johnny.
I know.
I'm really excited to play it.
Hey, Johnny, you know how many other games you can play that are, like, let's say Spider-Man and...
No, actually, that's it. That's for real it.
God of War,
it's similar price
Horizon.
to a PS5.
Yep.
It's similar price to a PS5, but, Steam has better prices. And, I've talked a lot about wishing that I used my Switch more, but like there's just nothing on there that's really drawing me into it,
Mm-hmm.
So, I'm going to get a Steam Deck. I'm super excited. I will definitely keep everyone updated when that happens.
That's pretty awesome. And if you guys like to give right now to help Johnny in his dream, this is the time. We'll put a link below, and you guys can help support him on his dream to become a PC gamer just like the rest of us.
Yeah, I'm not proud. I'm not proud at all. Please do. Send me some money. I'll use it.
Speaking
Buy
of
his albums.
Turn-based strategy, have you guys seen any gameplay of the Final Fantasy VII remake?
Yeah.
I've played part of Final Fantasy VII remake.
I think the new system's cool. It's a lot like Final Fantasy 15, isn't it?
I think, yeah.
Except that 15 queued your actions in a weird way, which really frustrated me.
I only played 15 for a few hours.
7 is kind of a hybrid of like 16 and like turn-based in the way that it kind of works.
Which is interesting because I played, Final Fantasy 13, and it was turn-based, and I actually enjoyed that turn-based. So maybe there is hope for me in turn-based strategy games. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, hey, we were having a good time playing Divinity Original Sin back in the day.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah,
I guess that's technically turn-based. So
yeah.
I guess I don't even think about that game. It's just it takes you to a different place, and you're so steeped into the fantasy elements of it. I don't even think about it being a turn-based. You're just like prepping, but I guess that makes sense. That game's so good, really good. Just like it can really take all your time, if you really let it. But and it's that's the mark of a really good game, right?
And Baldur's Gate 3 is much the same way in terms of like being really, really good in terms of story wise, like you buying in and totally into the immersion and everything, and it's still being like turn based, but the way that they handle turns is super interesting. I don't know.
I'm just saying,
like the way that they do things.
Dresden Files game, but like Divinity 2. Please.
Yeah, sure.
Is there anyone out there listening to me? Please do this. Someone.
But wouldn't you want it more like, like real, like, I don't know, like a third person action game style? I don't know, like a game like that. Like, I would want to be like in
doing
control.
The magic.
Yeah, like I would want to be in control of the battle. Maybe that's just me, but like
you are in control of the battle in turn-based farm.
Yeah, but you're in control of everybody, and there's some element of being the I guess the overseer or whatever, and controlling everybody that I like. But on the on the other element, I like the narrative of just one view, like a one person view of the story where you're like, this is you have to go through the story and see it through their eyes. I don't know.
I don't play a lot of third person like adventure games anymore.
What about
maybe
Jedi Survivor?
Jedi Survivor and Tears of the Kingdom, yeah, but like I don't play games like that very often. So
Gotcha.
maybe. I mean, how about this? How about they make both?
Make it both.
Yeah, make it. Well,
honestly,
no, it
that'd
doesn't
be
have to
pretty
be the
great,
same
yeah.
game, but two
Oh,
games.
yeah.
Make two games.
Yeah.
Hey,
Why not?
make it both.
The way
Why
that
not?
Dune is like coming out with like 3 games in the space of like, a month
Are they
or whatever.
really?
Like,
Are they really?
Well, they have 2 games out right now. One of them was on PC first, but just had its Xbox launch. And then
I keep
one
seeing commercials for that
just-
game on Twitch and everything. Like,
well, there's Spice
I don't know what
Wars,
this
and then
game
there's
is.
another one as well.
really?
That's
Interesting.
and the other one is more like a tabletop game that was adapted to console, kind of like Catan was. Or
What
the
is
Dresden
the Dune
Files card game.
What is the Dune game? I don't actually know. Someone please tell me. What is it?
It's a game about Dune.
Well, Spice Wars is like a traditional RTS or whatever is what it looks like, and then the tabletop game looks a little bit different. I don't know exactly how it works, but
With Dune 2 in theaters, how has Zendaya and Timothy Chalamet not gone back into the Fortnite store?
that's a great question. Actually, I'm not sure.
What do you say this game's called? Is on Game Pass now? I'm like loading up Game Pass. Hold on. Oh, Control is out now. Nice.
Yeah. Well, Control's been on Game Pass for a while, but now the Ultimate Edition is on Game Pass with the series upgrade.
Yeah, Control.
Which is really
Great
neat.
game.
Yeah.
Great game.
Spice Wars is on Game Pass, and then the other one is in the store because it like just released.
Is it called? Hold on. Let's do a search here. Let's do a search. Spice.
If you search for Dune, you could probably come up with
Dune Spice Wars. There it is. This looks
just
nothing like
search
the
up
movie.
Spice.
This looks nothing like
what
the
I
movie,
got
I'm
when
just saying.
I looked up the Dune 2 game or Dune game. I got the
What?
1992 version.
But Dune Imperium is the other one
All right, I'm gonna
that
try
like
it.
just released.
I'm gonna download Spice Wars here and try it out. We'll try it out.
The problem that I have with tabletop games is just how complex they are, and each one has a different system, and like I just don't have the patience for that. I really wish I did, and if it was like mandatory, if I was figuring out with a bunch of friends, that'd be one thing. But like
Right.
on my own, I just don't have enough motivation.
It's the problem with a lot of board games for me, and so Farm, you like to play board games, right?
Oh yeah, big fan of board games.
I don't play board games often. I recognize that they're fun, but every board game starts the same way. When there's people are like, they try to over-explain everything to you, and there's no way you understand it because you have no context for what people are talking about. And then they're like, you know what, we're just going to get started. And
I totally know what you're talking about. It's like somebody gets into trying to explain it, and then like, oh wait, here's this sub rule upon this rule that if you did this and this, and you're like, by then you're like, what? And
yeah,
you're like
and
so
then I'm
lost.
always like, I don't want to play anymore. And they're like, no, it's super fun. This game is so fun.
Yeah, and
This
that's
game
what
is so
everybody
fun.
says. Like, this is the
And,
best
and
game.
when
but-
this person specifically rolls a 7, you have to take off your left sock and put it on your right hand, and you have to do jumping jacks. And you're like, what? How does this make sense? And then 20 minutes later, you've got your sock on your hand and you're doing jumping jacks, and you're like, it makes sense. I got it. I know what this is.
We were actually playing a game tonight. We were playing Ticket to Ride. I don't know if you guys have played that game.
Ooh, I do know
It's
that
actually
one.
really fun. Ticket to Ride. Yeah,
I do
good game.
not know that one actually. I have a correction. I said Catan earlier. What I meant was Invasion of Candor. Actually, I forgot. Because that's what Johnny and I called it, because that sounds way cooler.
Invasion of Candor sounds like an awesome game.
Yeah,
Right.
If they just added some war elements, it could become that.
I mean, economic invasions are a thing too.
Economic invasion.
Yeah, or add some chemical warfare in there. We could go a long ways.
speaking of economic invasion, D, I know you had a topic for us today.
We don't have time.
No, we have time. We have time. Let's do it. Let's do it. I would actually, I really want to talk about it.
All right. Okay.
Well, I can start.
No, I mean, like, let's start with this. Like TikTok, the bill that's currently being proposed to like ban TikTok just passed the House earlier this week, and now it's in the Senate.
It's good. It doesn't make it through the Senate, though.
Say goodbye to your TikToks, kids.
Now, I don't even want to say the problem because, like, I'm kind of, I don't know, middle of the road as I tend to be, but for a variety of reasons. But
if you're in the middle of the road, that's where you get hit by cars.
That's true. Actually, that's true. Unless there's a divider and you stand on the divider, and then you're fine. Usually, unless there's bad drivers.
If you're on the middle of the fence, eventually you have to fall one way or the other. So you have to choose.
Yeah. But so the issue with it being in the Senate is that, like, obviously this is an app that like I think has 160 million American users.
Way less than World of Warcraft.
Way less than World of Warcraft. And there's also a bunch of people with different like bills that would accomplish the same goal. So there's kind of diverging interests in supporting this particular one.
Right.
Whereas it passed the House with like a wide disparity in terms of the yeses versus nos and all that.
Before we keep going, could we imagine a world
TikTok?
Could we imagine a world where instead of people doing TikTok, like our social media was World of Warcraft?
Oh my god!
Everybody, that's all they could do.
That would be like, I mean, people would just be trying to sell gold all the time. Like, I don't know.
Or selling accounts. Hey, this is not a pirated account. I'm selling
you want to buy my TikTok account?
It's worth 100,000.
I feel the need to say that the law is not to ban TikTok. The law is a forced sale of TikTok. Or else they will be banned.
Or a banning of it, yeah. And technically the law really is against apps controlled by what we're terming foreign adversaries, which I think is a relatively accurate way to describe China right now. I mean, we've kind of increased tensions economically with them, politically with them over the past like several years, to the point where I think it's fair to kind of say that like we're not best friends anymore. Not that we were ever best friends, but we're definitely not on friendly terms with them at this point.
China's not invited to the U.S. cookout. Okay, that's what we're saying.
Yeah, and obviously we're based in the U.S., all three of us, so we're going to have very American attitudes towards this probably when it comes.
Well, I'm based in Japan, but I am American. But also, I want to bring up, so TikTok maybe getting banned in America, freaking good riddance. You know what? Like, whatever. I don't care about it. I don't really like the platform. I have a really specific reason for not liking the platform. In my opinion, and not just my opinion, but the opinion of many people, I would say TikTok, while it may not be single-handedly responsible for this, it was definitely the tip of the spear that destroyed like the creator internet. So before TikTok, right? We'll use Instagram as an example. You would follow creators, or I mean, we can even say YouTube, Facebook, MySpace, whatever. You would follow creators that you liked, right? Hey, I like this person. I want to see content from them. And that's the content that would be shown to you. Right. Yes, there would still be advertising and such, but it was very simple of just like, hey, you know what? I really like Pomplamoose, this band Pomplamoose, right? I'm going to follow them. I want to see what they post when they post it. And it was a really, I don't know, it just made sense. And it was a really easy way for creators to reach their audiences. Then TikTok comes in. Follows on TikTok mean like almost nothing, right? Because now instead of you saying, hey, I like this person, I like this person, I like this person, I want to see their stuff, you have an algorithm that is saying, hey, they'll like this, right?
Yeah, and that
just doing that.
algorithm is based on other things that you've potentially watched, but
Right.
also on your age group, and where you're located,
And where you're
all these
located.
other factors. And I agree with you, Johnny. There's so many times I'm like, why do I not see anything that I'm interested at all? I don't
Right.
even go through it anymore, because it's like, I know what I'll see is not what I want to see. It's like, I don't even care. It's like, I'll look at my friend's stuff and that's it.
And you end up looking at stuff where, creators will complain that they only have like 10% of their followers are seeing their posts, right? Like people just aren't seeing it. And also this isn't, we're not even, I'm not going to touch on whether or not that algorithm is being influenced by TikTok. It's, you know what I mean? Like, we're not even going to talk about that. Like, people say, oh, like, Meta wants you to do this. So, if you don't copy and paste your description because Meta can detect that you copied your description from your notes app. We're not talking about that. Just algorithmic based content feeds have really hurt creatives being able to reach people who want to see their stuff. And like, for that reason alone, and that TikTok really introduced it, at least into like, I mean, I would say they introduced it and that they made it popular. I mean, freaking yeah, let them go away. You know what I mean? Like, I feel pretty strongly about it.
I would say, okay, now go farm, because I've got a lot.
You got a lot. Okay. Well, I was just gonna say, I was actually just talking to David. Like, I'm on TikTok and I post some stuff here and there, but again, it wouldn't be the end of the world at all. Like, if it just went away, like, I don't really care myself either. And, it's just a means to an end and if it's called something else and it's something come out, with somebody else, something else that's called something else, that, I'm fine with that. I'll go to that. It means really nothing to me, at this point. So I'm not really like gonna go to bat for them for any good reason. I have no reason to,
Right.
I have some concerns. Well, first off, I would say that in general, I think that TikTok kind of, to me, seems to be kind of a net harm, just in the way that it delivers information. Because a lot of people use it not just for entertainment, but for news, right? Or for figuring out how to do things or whatever. And like, for all of that to be synapsed into like brief short form videos, I think is actually detrimental to the accuracy of that information being explained. I think that's
true. I've seen that
ways
as well, because like let's just say guitar for an example. You see somebody saying this is how you play it, and I've seen most of those are wrong. There's faulty information out there on purpose.
Right. Or it's like one perspective, which might not work for everyone or whatever, Like, I had to go through so many piano. I had to go through like 3 or 4 people trying to teach me piano before I found my piano teacher, Susan. And like, she was like the first one that like was actually I was able to like relate to and understand and like learn from, which was kind of really frustrating until I was able to do that. Because we're all different and we all learn in like, different ways or whatever. And like different techniques sometimes work and all that. There's not like one correct way to do everything. Right. And I think that short form like information can kind of like give this misrepresentation that there is only one idea that's true, without really explaining the context or like trying to expand your ability to understand why they think that that's true or whatnot. And especially when it gets to, and my problem is too, specifically with like news or like politics or like anything like more serious or whatever, or even like in terms of like journalism and all of that, right? Where usually there's multiple sides to stories. There's multiple complex ideas buried in these issues. It's almost always not like easy to sum up something in like one sentence and like really represent the issue at hand. And I think TikTok has overall been really bad about that. But I think part of that also could potentially be intentional, and I'll get into that in a sec. But like I think that's why this bill exists and why our government officials are so worried about it, is that essentially TikTok can absolutely be used to spread misinformation just by TikTok putting their finger on a dial and deciding what gets more widely spread, whether it's inflammatory or just plain out inaccurate.
We've seen them do that same exact thing,
whatnot.
You know, what you're talking about.
Right.
We've seen it in small form, for sure.
Right. And we've seen this happen like with like other like, you know, apps and stuff too, but usually it's the company doing it. TikTok is a company in China. Well, their parent company is a company in China, ByteDance. And most companies in China have extreme government interference. I don't know necessarily how to like accurately convey how well, like at the very least, the government has access to those companies very easily. And like it could just be as simple as like gathering information on all users. Like we know that TikTok was like getting like pictures of driver's licenses and stuff. This was reported like fairly recently, like a couple months ago, I think, maybe last month. Like that has happened where they've like had people's like private information, like not encrypted, like available like to other entities, right? And that's a problem. And it could be as simple as like discovering like, okay, like people are worried about this issue or this issue. So then potentially the danger and why this bill exists is like that China could put their finger on the wall, potentially on the dial, and say like, let's show them this, right? And that could cause like more inflammation, more tension, more misinformation. Like that could really, really affect the way that people think about things, because that's what social media really does now.
Or maybe even a breach of national security in a sense. You know,
potentially, like, yeah. Like, I mean, that's why like most like there's like 4 or 5 different countries that have it banned on government phones for that reason specifically. And like, I mean, like national security information we've learned is like not the most well protected thing that it should be sometimes. Yeah. But like, so I think that there's a difference between wanting it to be banned because you have various issues with like how TikTok operates like as a social media platform, and then also why the government might have an interest in specifically stepping in and trying to ban it in the United States, because I think those are two different things. Where when the government is getting involved, that's my concern. Like, because I don't necessarily want the government to like limit our avenues to information, right? I don't want the government to step in and ban Twitter, even though I think Twitter's in a really bad spot right now.
I would be okay with the government banning Twitter. Do Twitter next, please.
I think that, well, and I also think that's fundamentally different than like deciding like that we should maybe potentially ban certain companies that are controlled by other countries that we don't have a great relationship with that might endeavor to try to use those apps maliciously, right? Whether it's passively or actively. But I also have some concerns with like TikTok going away. Like, I don't necessarily think it's a good idea to limit information. I don't like what it's done to the algorithm, but that's kind of like gone now, right? Like it's essentially, it's a done deal. The algorithm now is everything for every platform.
Right. But I think there's a couple things there, D, of if TikTok gets banned in the United States, in saying like limiting information, what information is on TikTok that is not on every other platform as well? Like, how is it really limiting information getting out to people? You know what I mean? Like, every TikTok is also on YouTube and also on, Facebook and also on Instagram. And so in that sense, I don't really think that TikTok being banned is limiting information. Like,
well, right
all
now,
of those
that's
content
not the
creators
case.
also are on everything else.
That's there are a lot of people that are solely TikTok because they've like been exposed to it at a younger age or whatever. I don't know, but like TikTok is like
they're solely
way
TikTok
more
because
popular.
They have 5 million TikTok followers and then 50 on everything else.
Exactly.
That's why they're solely TikTokers.
And like the short form videos first came to TikTok, right? Everybody else is just copying, and so like a lot of people like kind of like really liked that. And of course, Vine preceded TikTok when it came down to it, but Vine unfortunately did not last very long.
You either die the hero. Right?
Vine had to make way. If it wasn't for like certain platforms early on, like that, these other things would not have come out. So
I think,
but it is very geopolitical. It is a very geopolitical thing, And so my reason, but I would agree, my reason for being very happy that TikTok would be shut down, it has nothing to do with why the U.S. government wants to block TikTok in the United States, because, and then I don't know, I think anyone who disagrees, like, I'm sorry, but it's just kind of naive. China does not allow any foreign social media in their country. And a big part of that is to control their people.
And including
to
TikTok,
not allow
when it comes
those
down to
ideas. Right, including TikTok, and to not allow those ideas, right? So there's no Facebook, none of those kinds of things in that country. And on one hand, you'd be like, well, we shouldn't do that. But I think there have been multiple documented cases to show the power that social media can have over people.
Which sucks, but that's
to allow people in your country to be under the power of the CCP is not wise, right? Like there's the really famous case in Myanmar where Buddhists were using Facebook because Facebook didn't have any moderators who spoke the language there to spread hate speech, which led to like thousands of Muslims being killed in hate crimes and stuff like that. Like that kind of stuff is real. And while that's really dramatic to like use that as a reference, it's a real thing that really happened. Right. And, not wanting your people to have that kind of, this is like the same reason that people were uncomfortable with the Pope. Monarchs were uncomfortable with the Pope back in the day of like, well, it's an outside source that can influence our people. Right. And so not to say that like banning TikTok is right or wrong. I don't think it's really about that of like, oh, the US government is making the wrong choice. It's like, well, it's not really morally right or wrong. I'm saying it's the right thing because of how TikTok has affected me. But like you said, the cat is out of the bag on that. But also like, maybe this is my age showing, but like if TikTok gets banned, guess what? They're all going to find a new social media and it'll be just fine. Right. Like it just so happens that, and maybe that's a part of it. Like, but for me, like the current group of like popular apps, how many times have we switched at this point? Right.
Yeah. But normally we switch because like those apps go under, right? They fail. Like
sometimes, but then
it's usually not necessarily like the government stepping in and shutting it down. Right?
Don't worry, YouTube will always still be there.
But like I think more apps is generally a better thing. I really don't like the idea of Meta, even though I do really like Threads. And I don't mind Instagram. I don't like the idea of Meta having like the majority of social media like platforms under their auspices. I also don't know how I feel about the government stepping in and like removing an app that 160 million Americans, not billion, use.
just 160. Did you hear? Just 160 Americans.
Like 160 that seems almost tantamount to like the government kind of limiting free speech, and I'm a big believer in free speech. But again, like if a foreign adversary can essentially manipulate that platform, then we potentially have an issue, right? And then also, I do think that overall, with the way TikTok is designed that it kind of provides a net harm rather than a net benefit.
So do you support this or do you not support it? Because you're talking both sides now. You're saying you don't think it's a good thing, but then you're also like, but you think it's a good thing.
I don't like TikTok. I don't like the way that this bill is kind of reactionary. I think that the best bills are more preventative in nature rather than reactionary. So I honestly don't know where I quite fall on the bill itself.
Well, and again, all the way at the beginning of this conversation, it's a ban it's a forced sale.
Or a forced sale, yeah. And I meant to bring that back up too.
It is a forced sale, which if they want to keep operating in the United States, they need to sell to a US based company, or they can just stop operating. Twitch stopped operating in South Korea.
Right.
And I know that was their choice. I understand it's different, but TikTok could just stop operating in the United States if they don't want to sell.
Well, and if the United States owned TikTok, though, and like specifically was like actually actively involved in like operating private companies the way that China is, to the point where there's all kinds of ways that China exerts pressure on private companies too. So like, even though they're called private companies in China, there's a whole lot of ways the government kind of gets involved in those. I was doing a lot of research on that the past week.
Legally in China, they have to turn over whatever the Chinese government asks from them. And they also legally have to lie and say that they didn't do it under law as well. And so it gets into this weird thing where they're like, well, he said that they don't do that. And it's like, yeah, but if they're following Chinese law, even though he's in America and all that stuff, he's not legally allowed to say that they turned over that information to China or to the CCP, I should say, specifically.
Or to the government
so
of
they'd
China,
be in the right, technically.
Yeah. So like
what would be the flip side though?
Thing.
Let's say they end up, United States buys it. What stops them from doing the same thing in a sense where like controlling media? Don't you think that's exactly what they're going to do?
It wouldn't be the United States buying it though. It would be a private entity
company
purchasing it. And the way that the United States government interacts with private companies is drastically different because we have all kinds of laws in place that like basically a lot of the freedoms that private companies have in the United States when it comes to like data protection or whatever, like that isn't the same in China. Or like, for instance, we saw with the Twitter files, the government did make multiple requests for Twitter to take certain things down, and they actually refused. Like, I mean,
do you guys remember when? Well, there's two examples of it. I remember Snapchat turned over a bunch of stuff to the U.S. government, was subpoenaed and like turned over like 14,000 photos or something like that. I'm just saying, I don't really remember. And everyone was like, I thought that you guys delete those photos in Snapchat, which is kind of like, but then you also have that. I don't know if you guys remember that situation way back in the day when Apple went public, that the U.S. government asked them to give them a key to break into any iPhone, and Apple refused, and the government tried to put pressure on them. And so what Apple just did was they just made it public to get like the government to back off.
Made the situation public, not the key.
Made the situation. The situation public.
They made the keys. It's like, okay, if the government wants it, everybody gets it. Free reign for everyone. Let's go.
And that was even, they were trying to get into a terrorist's phone. And and Apple was like, no, we don't want to. But if we make that for you, you would be able to get into any phone. And we don't want to do that.
But even with the Snapchat thing, it still needed to go through a legal course of
it had to go
like
through the
remedies and like there needed to be a subpoena issued for like that stuff to be turned over. And China
not that I want to defend China, but I'm sure they have I'm sure the CCP has their own legal version of this that but they're just one party, right? So they're like, we're going to fill out the form and you're going to give us what we ask for.
Right. Well, that's like kind of, and then also they have multiple different like ways of like withholding funding or like manipulating companies through like buying board seats. Like there's all kinds of interesting dynamics there that like don't exist over here. When it comes to private companies here, private companies have a lot of like freedom and rights that they don't necessarily have in certain other countries. So, I mean, like, if a private entity was to buy TikTok from ByteDance, right? Like, it would be a way different thing because, like, there's no real easy way for the US government to, like, utilize that as propaganda as effectively as the CCP could potentially and maybe is doing. Like, I'm not saying it's impossible because, like, obviously the United States does do propaganda as well. Every country does.
But in the end, it's like a tit for tat kind of thing because the United States can't do the same kind of propaganda because China has a closed internet.
Right.
But the United States having an open internet, China can do that kind of propaganda, and that's hard. And I mean, so also going back, I thought maybe I've lived out of America for the last 10 years. Didn't Donald Trump ban TikTok back in the day? And it is still there.
He voiced support for banning TikTok. Now he's actually against the ban of TikTok. Now. Yeah.
My, how things have changed.
That's I'm just
the turntables. Yeah, and I know that. I guess even my own personal feelings, which I started with about how TikTok ruined like the internet creator situation. When two global superpowers are checking each other and going at it, it is a lot bigger than I just like this app.
Sure. Yeah.
Like, I want to say that to people listening, if they're even still listening at this point, of, it is more complicated than that. Living in close proximity to China, my mother is an immigrant from the Philippines, and, the Chinese military is constantly bullying Filipino fishermen in the South China Sea, and such. I don't have a lot of positive feelings to the CCP, and it's scary. And so living close to them, seeing the consolidation of power by President Xi and all of these things, like, I'm not...
Or even just seeing the rising tensions, too. I mean, like...
Yeah, I'm not surprised that the U.S. government would want to make these moves to try to contain... I mean, I know... So, like...
Foreign influence.
Yeah, foreign influence. Well, I was going to say, I mean... Usually when people talk about threats to democracy, they're talking about like the party that they don't agree with in the United States, right? So there is, for those, all the internationals listening, in the United States, there's two big parties, the donkeys and the elephants, and they, or red and blue. And so usually when Americans talk about like threats to democracy, we often are talking about whichever party you don't identify with. But like, surely like the one party system in China and their growing influence is just as much a threat to like American democracy and influence in the world. You know what I mean? Like,
or a bigger one. Yeah.
Well, just as much, if not bigger. Yeah, I would agree. Yeah. And, I know people have a lot of feelings about the United States, but being someone who lives outside of the United States, there's some things about it that are nice.
I guess where I fall, and I mean, like, not this specific bill is a little bit like, I don't know where I fall on a specific bill, but when it comes down to it, the government being involved in this, I think, like, here's where I fall, is that I think it would have to be a pretty serious issue for me to be okay with government intervention, but I think that this qualifies. I think that's essentially where I come down.
And again, we see what's on the subsurface too. Like we don't even know what may underlying something, as far as like behind the scenes. So yeah, I mean,
and again, circle all the way back to wrap up this episode. It's not a ban. It's a forced sale.
Well, it's a forced sale, and if that forced sale doesn't happen, a ban.
Well, but I guess the thing to me is I can't imagine that they wouldn't sell. And that they would just leave.
I don't know though, because
their biggest market.
This is what I was going to say earlier. I think if I don't know how realistic it is for you to expect a company to like sell because you have issues with them politically, except for like the huge market, right? But like, because like, so like, say the Activision This is completely like a completely different situation. So this isn't like 1-to-1 at all, right? But say
Right.
the Activision thing got blocked in the EU, for instance, right? Or like in the UK, which are both pretty big markets. Would Xbox like be okay with like selling Activision and like get those games in those markets? I don't know. I don't think so. I think that that's like a pretty heavy ask. I don't know like how realistic it is to ask ByteDance to sell like the one like major like I don't actually know if it's the only app that they have that's successful, but like it's probably the most successful by a long shot, right? Because of how successful TikTok is overall. And I don't know also what that means for the rest of the world, right? Like, but like to not allow your citizenry to use it or at least have it like not controlled by the issue with this particular bill is that the way that it defines foreign adversary is fairly ambiguous and kind of left up to the president. And I feel like that's kind of a dangerous precedent to set. So like I have issues with the way that this bill is phrased because it's largely reactionary. And because of that, I don't think that it's necessarily the greatest in terms of like setting a firm policy. But
more,
like, I mean,
like
I think that
over and be like,
right,
like they might not even take it seriously.
Well, and like the fact is that like the president defining who's a foreign adversary and who's not is kind of a weird like position for the executive branch to be involved in with concerns in terms of like that changing every 4 years potentially, right?
Well, that and the precedent it sets will be big as well.
Yeah.
So to like basically then we need to come up with a NAB to take its place, right? Somebody's got to do it.
TalkTick. It's the American version. TalkTick. It's different.
Yeah. But I mean, like, I don't know. Like, I think that a sale would be...
We'll call it a nav cap, a nav capture, but a nav cap.
Because, like, they don't... the issue with this bill, too, is that this bill forces them to sell to a U.S.-based company, I believe. I think I would be okay with it going to a private seller as long as there was transparency in terms of, like, the, like, relationship to any foreign adversaries, Like, if there was more transparency around, like, who has influence over that private company, I think that would go a long way towards alleviating a lot of my concerns as well. And I think like the US like based like forced sale is kind of almost like it almost seems like a power grab if you don't really like trust private companies in the United States to like be private, right?
I don't know. In the end, I don't really care.
Sure.
I don't really like TikTok, and I think that a ban of TikTok is fine.
But I like more major competitors in the app space forcing each other to like compete, and not everything being owned by Meta.
If this thing could be like helpful to the cause of the algorithm or something like
Twitter,
that could actually help. And generally speaking, if say they don't accept it, maybe they can negotiate. Maybe they can actually help with the whole way that they're doing their algorithm, because it is generally based on a very strict, this is what you're going to get sort of thing, not what you want to get. If they can make adjustments, maybe everybody on the whole will make an adjustment. TikTok is fairly big in the social media realm, and if this comes through and where they can come to some kind of agreement, but maybe there'd be some adjustments, maybe after all is said done, it might be an improvement. Who knows?
I don't. The one other thing I will say, I really don't like how TikTok is like actively encouraging every single user to like call their congressman and tell them that they want TikTok. Because that's just like a flood of people who don't necessarily or aren't very informed about any of this, right? Again, like if we get a different president in 11 months or whatever, 9 months, 8 months, like then the definition of what
Wait, isn't this like the reason they want to ban it? They're like, we're
mail
afraid you're
travels
going to
at its own
weaponize
pace.
this against us.
but-
And then they're like, we won't do that.
Yeah.
Also, all of you call your congressman.
But
and do that,
if we get a new
please.
president at some point,
Yeah,
and
tell
the
him-
definition of foreign adversary
tell him how nice we are to
changes,
you.
right? Because the
Yeah,
president gets
I
to
don't know.
decide that.
This is
according to this
officially our
bill.
longest episode.
Like, I mean,
There's
that
no way I'm
could
going to be able to
also
edit this
cause all-
down.
Like,
to
I
be
don't
shorter,
like the
I did the last one.
inconsistency of that either.
Which for
I
episode
don't
10,
know.
I feel
like there's a
I
lot
think
up
D
in
is,
there.
I think
We'll
D's
see.
advocating for a monarchy.
No, not at all. No, but I do think that bills should be written to like kind of stand as like policy for like future issues as well, and not just reactionary to like one particular issue. You know,
Right.
Like,
and as
yeah.
David had brought up in many, like different points, as far as like they're not consistent, and there's two very good points on either end, and so it's really hard to be like, okay, I'm one side or the other, because of the way they've got this worded and the way that it it's really going down, and I guess we'll just have to wait and see what really happens. And
Probably what's
See what
going to
happens.
happen is that nothing's going to happen.
most
That's
likely,
We'll
my
see.
guess.
Yeah,
My
I don't
guess.
know. It's in the Senate. We'll see. But the Senate also said that they're going to take their time with it, essentially, because there's so many different people with different opinions and all that. So, but what this really comes down to is this is the end of season 1 of AnavCast, right? And
With our
season
longest
2,
episode episode to
we'll
date.
revisit this arc of what TikTok's doing, because season 2 will be all about politics, baby. It'll be great.
season 2 politics is the theme. Wow, you heard it here first.
You heard it here for season 2 debuting on TikTok. Funny enough. This episode brought to you by ByteDance. Welcome in, everybody.
Not just for the record. FCC, don't cancel us. FTC. Yeah.
So this being the end of season 1, let's
Are we doing that?
recap? Yeah,
Are we doing
this
the?
is
Okay.
Can we like really quick recap what we've all talked about through
Can
the
we
last 10
make
episodes?
this episode any longer? Okay, what have we talked about the last 10 episodes? We've talked about the Switch being a PS2. We've talked about PS2 games coming out on the Switch. We talked about Sea of Thieves, a surprising amount. The fact that none of us really play the game, it's a surprising amount we've talked about Sea of Thieves.
I mean, I played it plenty, but yeah, the fact
Actively
that
play it, like
these
right now.
these games going to PlayStation is rather cool.
We talked about a lot of movies. We talked about Disney, and we talked about Warner Brothers.
That Disney Fortnite merge.
Wouldn't it be funny if Warner
partnership.
Brothers bought TikTok? Though?
Oh my god!
No.
I mean, that would be essentially the same
Would
as
they
it shutting
archive
down.
that too? They're like, okay, we're going to archive TikTok, and we're not even going to release it anymore.
They're like, guys, it's operating at a loss. We're just going to go ahead and shut it down.
Tax write-off.
Tax write-off. That's it. We solved it. We solved the TikTok problem.
Yeah, just sell to Warner Brothers.
Sell it to Warner Brothers, guys. Man, I'm so God. We talked about that. I had an album come out. We talked about that.
We talked
anything
about
else?
WoW. 3.3 billion players. Right?
3.3 billion players on WoW.
Yeah.
And it's been
really
awesome.
Good conversations. Yeah,
it's been awesome. I don't think we're taking a break though. Season 2 just starting immediately.
We're not taking a break. This is just an end to start again.
Yeah.
Farmer says that, but then he'll text us at like Saturday night and go, "Hey, I'm not making it.
I'm not coming.
I'm on vacation.
Yeah, I'm not coming, guys." But all right, that's it. So make sure to like and give us a good rating wherever it is you listen. Make sure to subscribe to us on YouTube. And guess what? We're not on TikTok, so don't even worry about it.
Go ahead and call your representative and tell them to subscribe to AnavCast.
Yeah, go ahead and please call your local representative and tell them to subscribe to AnavCast. Agreed.
Not your state one, because they're busy, but like your local. That's probably
local.
fine.
Yeah. Bye, everybody. Oh man, I almost made a big mistake. I almost left the chat instead of telling Craig to leave the chat.